Hello, everyone. A very good morning to everyone. We're just waiting for our final speaker. Oh, Shada ma'am has just joined. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, Asta. How are you?
Ma'am, great. What about you?
I'm good too, thank you.
All right, ma'am. So we'll just begin in 2 minutes. We just have to figure out some technicalities regarding the live stream, and we're good to go.
Sure.
Good morning, Principal Sir.
Good morning to all of you. Please begin.
All right, we'll just begin. A very good morning to one and all present, sir. I, Asta Parekh, President of the Entrepreneurship Cell of Arikat College, would like to cordially welcome you all to our yearly lead occasion, Entrepreneurial Youth Conclave 2022. Entrepreneurial Youth Conclave, or EYC, is a panel discussion symposium. We aim to provide a bigger opportunity for an informative and formal discussion for students across the globe. I'd like to thank our head convener, Dr. Monica Agarwal, and faculty coordinators, Dr. Shivani Raheja, Dr. Ruchi Sharma, Mr. Sanket Shekhar, and Ms. Gayatri Yadav, who have given us constant support and encouragement, without which this event would not have been possible. I would also like to show my appreciation to our noteworthy principal sir, Professor Manoj Sinha, whose unabating support and encouragement have made it possible for us to hold this session effectively. Now, I would like to invite Principal Sir to kindly address our audience.
Thank you, Asta. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning. I'm on way to court to fight an Ramlal Anand case, so you'll excuse me for keeping my camera off today. But first of all, my congratulations to Dr. Monica and other colleagues, Shivani, and Ruchi and everyone, Sanket also, who are all doing very good work with this entrepreneurship club, all the office bearers of, student office bearers of the Entrepreneurship Society, who are taking keen interest. And, this EYC has become an annual feature for you. You are organizing it now in continuity, which is a very good feature of the college. Recently, we have undergone the NAC assessment, and you have contributed in bigger ways than you would think to the profile of the college as well as the whole personality of the college. And I personally thank you all for this. But presently, all my best. You've got so many very, very worthy panelists for interaction with our students and others from other colleges who have cared to join us all. And I'm sure it will be very, very fruitful discussion throughout, because the topics, the speakers are all very eminent and very noteworthy. All the best for today and for the rest of your all programs that you organize throughout the year. I wish the best to the EYC today. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir, for your kind words. Before we begin with the panel discussion, I would like to share that there are limited attendees in this meeting, as the event is being live streamed on our YouTube channel with students joining from across Delhi University. Now, I would like to introduce our esteemed speaker panel. Our very first speaker is Ms. Purva Agarwal, who is the founder of Good Good Piggy. Being India's first fintech startup for pre-teenagers, Good Good Piggy is an online piggy bank and behavioral rewards platform, doubling up as an investment channel to form good habits, all the while contributing towards their financial security. Miss Purva is also the first female solopreneur in India and the third globally to enter the children's online banking and wallet space. The venture was featured on Shark Tank India Season 1 as well as Japan Startup Review as the Next Leader 2021. It is a great honor to have you on board with us, ma'am. Our second speaker is Mr. Mohit Rajpal, who is an alumnus of IIM Lucknow and Delhi University. He is the founding member at Eka.care, a digitally enabled and connected healthcare ecosystem for better health outcomes. Eka helps in empowering consumers and making it easier for them to tap the potential of their health records. Mr. Mohit has also worked as the director of ground transport, growing intercity, airport transport, and self-drive businesses at Make My Trip. Mr. Rajpal is the co-founder and ex-chief operating officer at mytaxiindia.com, where he was in charge of developing strategic partnerships, joint ventures, investments, and merger discussions. Sir, we are honored to have such an inspiring person with us today.
Thank you.
Our third speaker is Mr. Badri Narayan Gopala Krishnan. Mr. Badri has been an applied economist for 20 years and has immense experience and expertise in economic modeling and data science, as well as in areas such as international trade, energy, agriculture, industry, and health, and the economic impact of new technologies like robotics, 3D printing, nanotechnologies, cloud, IoT, and blockchain. Mr. Badri is currently serving the government of India at the rank of Joint Secretary as lead advisor, trade and commerce, strategic economic dialogue and international cooperation at NITI Aayog, the Indian Policy Hub. Unfortunately, Mr. Badri will be unable to join us today due to his health. However, Sir was kind enough to send a recorded video message our way.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers of this Entrepreneurial Youth Conclave at Aryabhatta College for having invited me to share my thoughts here. And I would also like to sincerely apologize to both the organizers and the audience here for not being able to come live and spend sufficient time with the other panelists. So I've been a little unwell, so I could not spend a lot of time on this. So I'm sending a very short video so that it can be used in the panel discussion. The topic that has been given to us today is business finance, roadblocks and road ahead. So this is a very important topic today because there is a lot of different types of enterprises for which finance has been a major roadblock in particularly in developing countries like India. So if you take MSMEs, for example, the micro, small and medium enterprises, for them, they even require finance for working capital, many of them. So you may find situations like, let's say, a small shopkeeper doesn't have enough money to, buy some of the things that he's going to sell. So to that extent, financing is required even for that. So there, the difficulty is for them to find that kind of financing sources with sufficiently low interest rate, close to market level interest rate, and with sufficient terms and conditions. So that is a major challenge. So many times they go for very high interest loans even for these kind of working capital issues. The second type of financing roadblock that you see in the larger firms is mainly in terms of scaling up, upgrading technologies, R&D, and those kind of things which are not necessarily needed for survival. So we're not talking about working capital, but about the fixed capital and the broader set of things that a larger firm would do. And there, the impact of finance could be on the productivity and efficiency, because if you have enough finances available, the scale can be large, and when you have large scale, productivity efficiency can be high. And if you're doing if you have enough finance and you can do R&D, again that's going to be helpful for you in terms of increasing productivity, reducing costs, innovation, and so on. So these are some examples of situations where you one faces roadblock. But now the solution, the road ahead, is in my opinion, it is mainly technological advancements. Of course, a lot of policy incentives should be there, and they are already there has been a lot of progress in that regard. But an area where there needs to be much more progress is using the latest technologies for ensuring that the business finance is streamlined. So, for example, if a firm and MSME is not able to get quick, access to capital, working capital, as I mentioned earlier, that situation should be avoided just by looking at the past transactions made by the MSME and develop some kind of index, right? Some kind of credit score kind of thing, so that they can be immediately given that kind of loan. Similarly, there could also be some kind of blockchain-based system where trust can be commoditized. You actually can, because the reason why these industries are not getting loans is because they're not being trusted enough. So if that trust can be assured by a technology, then obviously that technology is going to be the road ahead. So I think technology plays a very important role as a road ahead. And I think that those are the very broad points I wanted to make, and I would like to request the other panelists to shed light on this and expand on this further, and then of course come up with their own wonderful thoughts. So I'm looking forward to hearing from others as well. I hope this whole event is being recorded, so I can listen to it later on when I feel better. And I would like another opportunity to have a very detailed discussion in this forum with this audience and also with this panelists in the near future. Thank you very much, and I wish all the very best for this event to be a grand success. Thank you very much once again. In the other recorded video, I spoke mainly about business finance and roadblocks and the road ahead. I would also like to talk about one more important aspect, which is also the topic today, which is about student entrepreneurship. So students have two major advantages in terms of running an enterprise or starting, developing a startup. First is that they are, grounded with academic fundamentals because they are learning now afresh. Secondly, they also come with a fresh look into practical problems, solving practical problems. They are not biased with the long-standing ideas and thoughts and so on. So that's why students have a great opportunity in excelling in startups. And they have to use, all the emerging technologies to solve problems. But then solving problems is the most important thing. When you're solving a problem using all these technologies like blockchain, AI, IoT, cloud, and so on, then you're establishing a successful startup. So the Government of India is doing a lot of things to encourage entrepreneurship among students. Like Atal Innovation Mission is a great example, starting from Atal Tinkering Labs to the Atal Incubation Centers and so on. So there are many schemes like that. I would like to request all the students to take advantage of all these different government schemes and incentives to develop their own entrepreneurship while they are in the college, so that after they finish the college, they can continue building.
Thank you, sir, for your kind words. Our fourth speaker is Mr. Ashish Jhunjhunwala, who is an MBA graduate from IIM Calcutta and has over 7 years of industrial experience across financial services, strategy, and management consulting. After completing his graduation from St. Xavier's College, Calcutta, he completed Chartered Accountancy and Company Secretaryship. He has also done his CFA and FRM, being one of the youngest in the country to have completed them. Under his belt, Mr. Ashish has experience working with Goldman Sachs, Raja Capital, Sovereign Fund of India, and the Boston Consulting Group. Sir, we are honored to have you here with us. Our fifth speaker is Ms. Sharda Agarwal, who is the co-founder of Sepalica, an online health clinic for women that is focused on reversing chronic health conditions through guidance on diet, vitamins, acupressure, and lifestyle. Under her belt, Ms. Sharda holds an MBA in marketing from IIM Bangalore and a BSc in economics from St. Xavier's College, Calcutta. Ms. Sharda is also an independent director of Kotak Mahindra General Insurance Company. Ms. Sharda has over 25 years of experience in sales, brand development, as well as brand and distribution strategies. Ma'am, we are delighted to have you on board with us. Without any further delay, I request Garg Mittal to take the stage and begin with the panel discussion.
Thank you, Asta. A warm good morning to everyone. I, Gar Mittal, will be your moderator for the event. The topic for today's discussion will be business finance, roadblocks, and road ahead. Before we begin, I would like to inform the audience that we will be having a short Q&A session at the end of the event, so feel free to ask any queries that come up during the discussion in the live stream chat box. India at 100 years will be defined by where India is at 70. The next 75 years are crucial to reposition India as a leader on the world forum, not only in politics and economics, but also in innovation. In terms of Global Innovation Index, India has moved from 81st spot in 2015 to 40th spot in 2022, making it very evident that startups and innovation are very important growth engines for the company. Our primary way to promote entrepreneurship is through the youth, the student entrepreneurs who can take forward and work on the challenges the country faces. Research has proven that taking up entrepreneurship increases the locus of control of an individual. So, not only the students get recognition for their ideas, but they can get a sandbox environment with the support of their mentors. However, they are faced with their own set of roadblocks, which we will try to shed light through our session today. Now, I would like to begin with the very first question. According to you, what is the importance of student entrepreneurship in our country today? How can buddy student entrepreneurs overcome the challenges they face in terms of funding and scaling? I would like to start with you, Ms. Kuba.
I think it's absolutely a delight to be speaking today. I'm very happy to share the panel with very, very esteemed speakers. Some of them I've met in person, and some of them I'm meeting today through this event. In talking about student entrepreneurship, I think I started very early. Not very early, I would say I was 24, 25, thinking about entrepreneurship while I was working. And, I think the best thing about entrepreneurship is it's an area where nothing for you in terms of learning is a waste. So I think for all those who believe that having an all-round personality helps for understanding, and fortunately or unfortunately, entrepreneurship will put you in a spot where you are cross-functioning, where even if you talk about the best companies, for example, you're going and joining a Fagma, which are the top 5 IT or tech companies in the US. You will go and see that anybody who's joining the company and leaving the company will probably have the most cross-connected and most intersectional brain. So they will start with, let's say, joining HR, but by the time you come out of that company, you have done marketing, you have done accountancy, you worked on budgets, you've done HR, you've done so much more. So I think that is what even starts allow you to do. It allow you to cross function a lot. So I think what you would experience there is also something similar that you experience here. And I think that brain development for anybody who's at a very young age is helpful, because you're building your soft skills, you're building your hard skills, your technical skills, learning about what sales is and how important that is to a startup, and all of that comes together. So entrepreneurship at a very young age, I think, is highly recommended. But again, let us, it's something which has to be done very carefully. You should have good mentors in your journey. You should have a direction. Something that has worked for me has been, institutionalized backing. So when institutions back you at different stages of your entrepreneurship journey, they will put you on a framework. They will put you on a roadmap. They will have the correct, I would say, report card for you to assess. So, for example, Good Piggy as a brand was brewed, or as an idea was brewed in Kairos. And Kairos is a very, very famous VC club, underground club of young people thinking about impact and change. That helped us because we had some great design thinkers talking to us in a structure, taking us through a program over months. And then when I started to think, maybe I have something which is very meaningful, I shared it with venture builders. They came in with an assembly line which would take me through the idea to MVP journey in a bit. From there, of course, we reached Shark Tank India, which got us a lot of early movers and early adopters of the technology who put up their names on the wait list. But even after that, STPI backing us, or Zone Startups backing us now, Vadvani Foundation giving us their, frameworks. So a lot about young talent requires, I think, direction and mainstreaming, and that is what we go to institutions for. And there are very, very expert people out there who will tell you then what to do and how to climb those small steps. So you generally see somebody doing 0 to 1, but there's so many, there are probably 100 steps in between that have to be done right to reach one. So I think that's my 2 cents for students, entrepreneurs. Start, because it's a great way to learn. A lot of organizations will value you, because they know you have the spirit, the passion. But what's important is a framework, a mentor, or mentors per se, who can bring you on track and can assess you, can keep guiding you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Mr. Mohit, what is your say on this?
Great, thank you everyone, and good to see the great panelists on the screen. So ideally, everyone has a different way of looking at entrepreneurship. For me, the student entrepreneurship, entrepreneurship is an entrepreneurship whether you start early or start you late. What I feel that yes, you're solving for something, right? You're bringing something onto the table, and I think before starting, you should go deep. You should understand what are you solving, what would be your TAM, right? And at the end, how would you be able to sustain? That means, how would you make money? This should be clear, crystal, and it should be on the table. While definitely you get to learn many things when you start, because eventually, whatever idea you have when you start, it gets changed or you diversify after looking at the avenues. But in my view, if you are a student and if you have an idea, first of all, in India and nowadays, there are platforms available where you can start your business and you can start executing. But the suggestion would be take some real experience of the corporate, because you get to know about people management. You get to know when you start a business, then eventually what it takes. It's not that only an idea and you start executing. Ideally, there are a lot of efforts goes to build a company, right? While definitely learning is something which never ends, whether you are 35, 37, or at whatever stage you are, learning never ends. But in my view, students who wants to start, if they take some corporate experience and they start, as per me, they would become a better entrepreneurs. Second, they would be able to get some talent, because at the end, when you're starting and you're a founder, it's very important that you build a right team, because alone you can't do anything. You need right thinkers or even better thinker than you. Only then you can manage. Third, yes, there are platforms available in terms of you want to scale. So there are many institutions. Again, my suggestion would be think only to go to institution when you are ready for scale. Don't go for sustainability. You should bring your business till the sustainability by your own. That means your business should be self-sufficient to fund you or to manage your all expense. So till it's there, then definitely you should go to all the institutionals or angel investors to and ask for the scalability. Yes, now I want to grow and scale my business. So I think these are the stages which we should follow. But here, my suggestion would be the playground is open, right? So if you have idea, please execute. Only follow one mantra: execute fast and fail fast. Don't try to keep things slow. Go very fast. That's the funda of any startup or any entrepreneur. Please go fast, but go deep before you execute. Please go deep. Ideally, you should have 10, 15, or even more than that. People who say that okay, your business idea is not correct, so that you further go deep and identify the gaps. So that's my take on it.
Rightly said, sir. Mr. Ashish, what are your views on this?
So, hi, Gaurav. Hello, good to be part of the discussion. So, for me, I have a very strong belief that entrepreneurship is not a career choice, it's like an attitude. So, it's not necessary that you choose a career in entrepreneurship, it's also a part of your day to day life. In fact, everyone in the country would have at some point or the other of definitely thought of becoming an entrepreneur. Usually two things lack. One is that idea, and second, everyone is waiting for that right time. So idea is definitely the base of whatever you do anywhere in life. However, for the right time, I personally believe as a student there couldn't be any better time than that. Why? Because most of the people, when deciding whether to pursue entrepreneurship or not, there's a huge opportunity cost, there's a huge competition, there's a huge people looking at, okay, what if I fail? So this answer or this question, that what if I fail, is significantly the opportunity cost is low when you are a student. Secondly, we have entrepreneurs out here who can agree to the fact the biggest challenge is getting your first 10,000 customers in whatever you do, right? So at student level, you already have those customers in your wings, in your classmates, in your school fest, right? So this student entrepreneurship is the best time to pursue entrepreneurship. Also, usually people look at what if things fail, right? So definitely, if you become like, if the startup grows, if the entrepreneurship is successful, what are the challenges there? Like, should I go for funding? How do I manage people? How do I build a team? How do I raise funds? But there are multiple benefits of even if the startup is failing, right? When you're actually pursuing a startup at an early age, or when you're doing entrepreneurship at an early age, the growth is 10x of what you would have normally learned in your classrooms. I remember I did my first startup when I was around 17, 18 years old, back in 2012. That was largely that time pharmaceutical industry did not used to give discounts, which has become a very common right now. So I started something called Get Well Soon, where we used to procure from wholesalers at a discount of let's say 20, 19%, and we used to pass on 10% to the customers. We ran that for 6 months, and this like we couldn't figure out the logistics cost is an important component and all. But that was my first thing which I did in my life. Post that, I did multiple failed startups, right? From delivering food, every time I failed. But what has happened today is I know definitely in which industry what not to do. So I haven't been able to build a startup of my own today, but you put me into an industry, you put me into a role, I know कि यार ये तो नहीं करना है. So I think student entrepreneurship or student life is the best time to do it. You do definitely, the aim is to build a big startup to make it big in life. However, there are multiple. It's a win-win situation, because even if it's a failed startup, the learning is huge. So even if you have like if you believe the idea, you believe in the idea, you have faith ki haan yaar, this is a white space, this is a problem that needs to be solved, there are people suffering because of it, at some point or the other there's an inconvenience. If you actually feel that you feel that there's a solution to it, go for it. Things would fall in place. There would be backers, there would be friends, there would be supporters, funding would flow in. If nothing of this happens, there would be huge of learning, amazing amount of learning. So this is the best time as per me, the student life.
Thank you, sir. That must be very much encouraging. Moving ahead to Miss Sharda. Ma'am, what are your views on this?
I don't think there's a better time than now to be a student entrepreneur. This whole world of risk capital, whether it's individual investors or institutional investors in the form of venture capitals, is where there is money for you today. It's available for you to go and make the most of it. When I started my first venture back in early 2000s, there was nothing called risk capital. The only place I could go to was a bank. And There was, if you didn't show them that I was going to make profits, you didn't get money. Today, we're all living in a world where you can burn investor cash. You can keep making losses after losses, year after year. Nobody is worried. As someone mentioned here earlier, they're only concerned with where is your first 10,000 customers. Then from 10,000, can you make it to 100,000? Then multiplied by $100, and then it's all stratospheric on revenue. And I think that's great because it fuels this whole ecosystem of being an entrepreneur. So this is the best time. Secondly, in our time, if we didn't graduate or if we didn't get a degree, our parents would boot us out. Today, nobody wants you to get a degree. In fact, it's even better if you don't have a degree because you can tell the world, guess what? I don't have a degree. And I think that's, so it's great for you guys. You don't have to do the traditional path of going and, a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, etc., etc. So that thing has gone out. But however, like the previous speakers have said, you just need two big things, right? One is a great idea, and two is outstanding execution. I have also seen people who have a copycat idea, but they do such flawless execution that gets them way ahead. So remember, you need an idea and you need execution capabilities. That's a combination that's potent. I think the only thing is, remember, not all of us will become a Nitin Kamath or a Sachin Bansal. So don't get swayed by what you see in public, what you see, the millions of dollars that people are getting. Set your own benchmarks. That would be my single. Your benchmark are yours and yours alone. Not one entrepreneur will stand out and say what shit they go through, how terrible the life of an entrepreneur can be. So learn to read the bad with the good. That would be my advice. But as I said, there is no better time than today.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Moving on to the next question. With the rapid digitalization of the economy, how can startups leverage emerging technologies such as blockchain, cloud computing, artificial intelligence to their advantage? Starting with Ms. Purva.
So I think this entire technology gambit is something which is new and upcoming. It's catching fire even in the VC domain, even when it comes to investment. I mean, if you add the word that you're doing DeFi or you're doing something with blockchain, there is a whole buzz. I think every time, and all of these trends again are borrowed in India. They are borrowed from the Wild West. So what is happening in the valley? That narrative will slowly trickle down to India, and people will start experimenting. Also, Indian talent today is very globalized to learn technologies, right? So if you talk about a blockchain, or you're talking about decentralized finance, or you're talking about tokenization, Indians are very much at par, at least in terms of technology, to be able to stand there, know the latest ones. In fact, you will see a lot of, in the global landscape, a lot of these technologies and talents being borrowed from India when it's done so. So I think India is a home ground for such technologies. Those of you who have that tech inquisitiveness must definitely explore the latest trends and technologies, because that puts us forward. It puts us in a direction where we are also exploring new innovation and bringing it to life. What my perspective is with startups exploring this, I think a large part of technology today is around trust. So trust as a model is very interesting. And you don't have to be really scientific about it. Have a look at a small case study. For example, Airbnb, right? If years ago I would tell you that, look, there'll be a stranger who comes to your house when you are leaving. You got to give a key to that stranger and go away. And tomorrow morning when you come back, take the key from the stranger and leave your house to it. Ask your parents, your grandparents would probably tell you, oh my God, how can we leave a house to a stranger? What if they rob it down? What if they tear it down? What if there's damage? There's so many things that you would be insecure of when I pitch it like this. But the way Airbnb does it, it's absolute trust. You don't have any issue with giving the same keys of your home to an absolute stranger just because they're from the Airbnb platform, right? So I think these are all trust technologies. A large part of new and emerging technologies has to do with user trust. And I think the ethos for us to borrow, irrespective whether it's a technology venture or not, is that consumer trust as a sentiment is something that startups should be aware about and should build forward. Whether they're doing it with technology, without technology, through branding, through a positioning, it barely matters. What's important is trust. And I think I'll go a step ahead for anybody who's thinking about a venture to not just look at trust from the angle of consumer trust or customer trust, but stakeholder trust. I think long are the days gone when we have, come over shareholding trust, that you have to always win trust of shareholders. Then it became about, winning trust of customers. I think today it's about stakeholders in general, and looking at, how stakeholders, be it vendors, be it your partners, be it your consumers, be it your investors, be it with, any specific sector of, stakeholders that are there in your business model, how you're generating that trust. So maybe use technology for it, or if it is not technology, then other systems and mechanisms that can be put in place for you to leverage that element. So I think that's my two insights. I know I deviate slightly from the topic, but I think it's a very, very meaningful insight for somebody who's building a venture and thinking about elements or values they need to place in the venture.
Yes, ma'am. Rightly said. Moving next to Mr. Mohit. Sir, what is your take on this?
Yeah. So while I would be a bit little, but yes, rightly said. I think I would still linger on from the trust, because trust is something. It's a value, whether it's in the person or it's an organization, right? It's a value. And for me, trust, it's not only the consumer trust. The trust is what you are building, right? So from the technology standpoint of view, is your if your technology is trusted, because then it can go to scale, and the scale is very important. Scale is something which you can take it from India to some other country, wherever you want to take it. But yes, scalability and trust are the keys for any organization you take it, right? In terms of getting into the points of the point which you made it, I think still there are many startups who are working on it, and I would not say that anyone has cracked it fully, but still the time to come and time to learn. We are still on the learning phase, in my view, right? I won't be able to comment much. In my view, it's a journey. Let's learn. Let let the organization who are working hard to disrupt this market to come, and so that we can go further deep. So I would take my points limited here.
Thank you so much, sir. Ashish, sir, what are your insights on this?
Sure. I think if you look at over the past 7-8 years, the entire startup industry, which has grown in India, from a Swiggy to an Ola to the most recent startups, technology has been the driving factor. So even if you look at blockchain, DeFi, AIML, all these are types of technologies. And the biggest thing about technology is as more and more people adopt the same technology, the better it becomes, right? So the idea is that whatever the latest trend in technology is, how do startups start to adopt that, and what are the larger benefits of it, right? So like, let's say if I think about the top three benefits of adopting any of these technologies, would be firstly transparency, right? Why did Swiggy and Ola just became big? So till now, when you used to order from a restaurant near your food from a nearby restaurant, you never had any visibility on or what time would it take, whether it will actually arrive or not. Then we saw Ola and Swiggy coming up with the GPS tracking, which is shared with you. This is around the 8-year-old technology, right? And that was a game changer for them. Now comes let's to privacy and security. As Purva mentioned, Airbnb couldn't have been possible, right? People couldn't have, like, that's a more general trust. However, keeping money in your wallet, right? People keeps thousands of money in their Paytm wallet. Like, I use 10 types of wallet and don't even remember what amount of money is in which wallet, but there's a trust factor there that that money is there and it belongs to me and it's safe, right? So technology helps you build that. And the third thing is automation and scaling up. So any startup which you look, which has been successful and has grown, is because of the, at some point or the other, they have to scale up, or the size of the economies of scale have to build it. And at economies of scale, if that automation and that factor is not there, it's very difficult to uh, fit in the economies of the unit economics until that scaling up cost reduces, right? So technology significantly helps you do that. So in my view, in today's time, if any startup plans to succeed, plans to grow, they actually need to adopt the latest technology and grow and play by that.
All right, sir. Shada, ma'am, what are your take on this?
I actually look at technology differently. I don't start technology forward. I start consumer forward. So the way I look at it is, who is your consumer? And what is the pain point that you're trying to solve? And then say, okay, now this is the pain point. This is my goal with this consumer. and then see what kind of technology will fit best. Otherwise, you will, it's the same thing the same point I made in my previous question, which is we will all run after tech. Everybody today wants to build an app because it's fashionable to build an app, right? Everybody wants to do blockchain because it seems to be the talk of the day. So technology is fantastic, but it has to be tailored to what your business idea is. So we all talk about scaling up technology, but let's take an organization like American Express Concierge Service, right? They are, or even the program that I do, right? I run fertility, but for high-end clients. So very high-profile clients. If I bring in technology saying, let's use apps, my clients will reject me because they want that personal touch. They want to see a doctor or a therapist at the other end, and it has to be real. So you know what they tell me? Can you just stick to Zoom video? Let's not do anything else, right? Don't move us to these apps. Don't even want automated messages because they want that level of touch service. So similarly, Amex Concierge Service is doing travel services for really high net worth individuals. But at the same time, see how Make My Trip has, in the same space of travel, has used technology very differently, has used technology to leverage and grow their business. American Express believes that they will have people. They'd rather use people rather than technology. So I would say when you look at technology, look at what the goal of your business is, who your customer is, and what is the problem you're trying to solve.
Thank you. Yes, sir, please.
Okay, sorry, I just want to add one point, especially like Shraddha mentioned technology. So why do you bring technology in any business? One is to scale, second to disturb, and second, how well you can build it so that you create entry barriers. That's very important for any entrepreneur, right? Everything has a meaning. If I'm starting something or you're starting something, there should be meaning. One, it should solve for community. It should solve for me also, because if I am not selfish or if I'm not thinking for my own, then I would not be able to build strong. So technology would play these three aspects: scale, disrupt, and create entry barriers. That's very important. You have to create entry barriers so that if another one thinks to come into the same space, they should look that, yes, I am 5 years behind them. So this is what you should follow, right? That's way, why we are bullish about technology, because we can really scale fast, we can disrupt, and we can create entry barriers. So just wanted to add on that. Thank you.
That was very insightful, sir. Moving on to the next question. In your perspective, what role can the government play to help boost entrepreneurship among young people in India? I would like to start with Ms. Purva.
I think the government plays a very, very important role. In fact, we have Sharda on the panel. 2 weeks ago, she met me as a judge, looking at our startup to see if we could get government backing. And I'm so glad to share the panel with her. I think it's a whole ecosystem that takes a startup to reach where they are. And government and their awareness on startups, and in fact congratulating this government. This year they did a startup day in January, and I'm sure it's going to happen now annually. And when that happens, and the entire ecosystem wakes up to what entrepreneurship is, and largely about entrepreneurship and what it does, it wakes up innovation. So a little chunk of my life I was living in London, working in London. I was working for the VC and the PE space, where I was marrying startups to investors as an advisor. Now, what I learned there, and that is also a piece where I think we learn about the government, is why most technology, or at least finance, fintech startups, are London based, or most technology companies have their headquarter or their presence in London, is because governments from policy level are creating policies which bring that innovation to their country. For example, any tech startup who's innovating and has done some R&D, under the R&D scheme, would get 33% of their expenses back into their business, which was great, because as a consultant you could rewire cash flow in the company, and you knew that this cash flow absolutely is critical to the startup, and with the way they function, the way runway happens. On the Indian government side as well, you would see the Indian government being very aware, where there are specific bodies now created who are only looking into the startup ecosystem. Startup India certification, for that matter, is something with, when you register your startup in it, you're not just getting benefit of 3 years of no exemption from tax, but also from the perspective that there's so many events, mailers, competition, innovation platforms, etc. They keep pushing into your inbox. Now, this obviously keeps your motivation alive. It gives you the right forum as a startup, irrespective of where they are, and then meaningfully marry you to the right stakeholder system where your technology could be implemented at scale. So the government does many competitions. If you are a entrepreneur, it will not take much. In fact, it's very easy to go and register yourself. You don't need a consultant in between. There are other certification, for example an MSME certificate. If you're registering for that from the government, then you're getting benefit that in case your invoices are stuck somewhere, you can tell them you're an MSME, then they're supposed to pay you back in 45 days if that happens. Otherwise, you can leverage an interest on late payment. So there are so many benefits that you end up taking away from the government, because policy backs you up. Policy backs you in a way that your cash flows get managed critically, and it is awareness of an entrepreneur to go and tap into those schemes, tap into that ecosystem, go and register yourself proactively, because nothing will come to you. You have to go to the river to drink and quench your thirst. So I think a lot of problems that on the government level, policy thinkers and design thinkers, think tanks are innovating for in the startup domain. A lot of loans available. I think there is no time better. I was telling my mom, I'm so glad I'm a woman doing entrepreneurship versus a man doing entrepreneurship, because there's so much extended help that you get everywhere if you're by merit. And I think I see Mohit smiling, and as she's smiling, there I always give this cold shoulder to ma'am. Like, you know what, we're at a place where at least we know that while there are challenges as women entrepreneurs, there are also benefits that you can take. It's about you to say that you stand by merit and be able to avail those shoulder to shoulder. Otherwise, you'll always be at a ground less. So I think from the government's perspective, there are many ways of financing, and irrespective, even non-government financing, there are many options for you to do a crowdfunding, for you to reach out to institutions. I slightly differ from what Mohit said about going to institutions only after you have figured out your sustainability. Sometimes you're building ventures which take time to reach sustainability, and during that journey you might need help and you might need hand holding. While it is true that you should get out fast, experiment fast, then if you're building something, let's say, which is hardware oriented, which is a changing space technology, it will take you time to reach sustainability. So I don't think so you should take those rules set in stone, but see what works for you, and then be aware very much, looking at what policy help you can get.
Thank you, ma'am. That was very much informative for us. Yes, Mr. Mohit, you would like to add something to this?
Yeah, thank you. So in my view, I think Indian government, there has been a many platforms, right? At least for a startup to reach out to institutions, either as a private body or a government body. Now, you just Google it and you get to know many things. Even Atal Innovation is one of the part. What I would like to recommend, because starting up, right? When you start, you have a passion, you have an idea, and I feel everyone has an idea. But who wins? Who execute fast? In my view, there should be a grooming opportunity either in colleges, or the government should take an initiative that how do you groom an entrepreneur. It's like that, not to start and getting your 20-50,000 consumers. It's just that how to set up the right fundamentals for your business. Very important. Why I'm stretching so much? India has a vast economy, right? We know our population. So getting users is not a challenge, but yes, sustaining it. How do you make money out of those users is the key, right? So in my view, yes, there should be some grooming session, or something to be taught in colleges or somewhere else, where we are grooming young entrepreneurs, that okay, when you start a company, you have to look at how you're making money. If you think that you can make money, then you go to institutions to grow further or scale further, because it will have two impacts. One, your proof of concept would be done that yes, I have sold 2,000 customer and I'm making money. Now I want further investment to reach out to 5,000. Why 5,000? Because if I go with the speed, I would be able to reach, let's say, in a year. But if you support me, then I can reach in just 2 months. That's how it should be. This is how you groom minds. These are fresh minds. So accordingly, if you groom them well, this is how they will come. So in my view, yes, this is where the government should think, and the recommendation to Delhi University as well, that yes, if they're taking a you know, they are encouraging entrepreneurship, I think these are the fundamental things we should tell people what they should do when they start. Rest, I think financing is very much available. I still think that people should only go for financing when they're sure they want that yes, there should be a stakeholder or a shareholder in their in the cap table. So be very sure when you get it. You're starting a company, you're the owner of the company, everything should be meaningful. So that's my take on it.
Thank you so much, sir. Next, I would like to ask Mr. Ashish.
So in my belief, government plays a really important role, and actually government has actually done a fair bit of in the startup space over the past few years. I think the biggest thing which the government has done is creating awareness and acceptance, right? So nowadays parents are proud, okay, my child is trying to do a startup. 5 years before, that wasn't the case, right? Parents were afraid, the society was afraid that, okay, this guy has left a full-fledged job and is trying to create something. Is it worth it? Right? So people were like, why are you trying to do a startup? Why are you trying to do entrepreneurship? Instead of asking, what are you trying to do? Right? The second part, as Mohit mentioned, which is actually something very important and the government should definitely try to do, is make it a part of your curriculum. So no matter what you are trying to do in life, some point or the other, entrepreneurship has to play a part, right? Even if you are into a job, the company is into entrepreneurship, right? So maybe you are an employee, you're not directly an entrepreneur, but you have to exert entrepreneur capabilities, entrepreneur thinking at some point of or the other. So it has to, at some point or the other, start to become a part of the curriculum. The third part which a government can play is financing, right? So a few years before, the government launched the Mudra scheme. That was for a more on the traditional side, but we can actually think of having something on the for a more technological or a more innovative startups also. For that, fourth one is like just like we have Shark Tank recently, and we saw a lot of amazing startups coming in. We had also had Purva there, and we just came to know about it. And most of the startups, just because of the awareness of the startups which came out, a lot of startups benefited and had 10x customers in the few time, right? So why just one Shark Tank run by Sony, right? We can actually have multiple Shark Tanks by the government. Recently, Delhi University, all the Delhi government, I guess I saw a few videos where they actually did that in Delhi, right? Where they had a Shark Tank type thing where students came and they also received funding from the government. The most other important thing which is very underappreciated is mentorship. uh, Funding is easier to get, right? I have a few rich relatives, they give me the funding, right? But it's like, funding mil gaya, ab karoge kya uska, right? I have an idea, that execution is really difficult. So people who have been like, who have seen the journey of 0 to 1, 1 to 100, you need them on the board, you need them to mentor you. So government can actually have a panel which helps you get that mentorship. In the private space, it's very difficult to get time of people, but with government support, the challenges can significantly be reduced. The last couple of points is, firstly, partnership. Government still owns a lot of enterprises in India. So the idea is that, okay, if a person has come up with a few startups, how can we link that startup to the entities owned by the government, to try and make it a win-win situation for both. And lastly is regulation. So we had a running joke till recently that RBI has a weekly newsletter of notifications for the fintechs in India. So the more stable and the more established, the more transparent regulations are to the government, by the government, for the startups, that really helps. So I think if the government has done a lot in this space, but if the government maybe uh, does a little more, definitely the startup can further bloom in India, the startup industry.
That was very insightful, sir. Next, I would like to ask Ms. Sharda. Ma'am, what are your thoughts on this?
So 5 years ago, if you wanted to open a restaurant in Mumbai city, you needed about 31 to 32 licenses. 31 to 32 to open just one restaurant. Today, we're down to half. So fantastic work done by the government. But it's still 15, 16. I just opened my new office a few weeks ago, and I have to go to the Mumbai Municipal Corporation for one set of license. I have to go to the fire department for another set of licenses. Then we have something called the Shops and Establishments Act. So everybody has their own requirements. I still feel that while the government has done a fantastic job over the last few years, we are still way, way below in terms of ease of doing business, right? And I think the answer lies in the government pushing more and more of private sector folks to come into the government so that they can help the government in turn help private sector. If you didn't have a look at what Nandan Nilekani did for the Aadhaar. So we all can complain and crib about what the Aadhaar system did, but such a massive project in a country like India, it is of a scale that we cannot even begin to imagine. And I believe that using technology, the brains, the entrepreneurial ability of a private sector person, bring them into government, has in turn helped the private sector. So there's a long, long way to go. And there is so much I believe the government can do. And I think the government should be asked, rather than doing it, how much can the government do? There's only this much amount of effort, limited resources that they have. I think the way to do that is actually to push people like us who are sitting in the private sector to come and say, you participate now more actively in the government.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Moving ahead to my next question. At ESL Aryabhat, we have our annual magazine titled The Frontrunner. We would like to request each of you to give us a personal quote or a piece of advice that will help our avid readers in their entrepreneurial journey. Starting with you, Miss Purva.
Bechari Purva ko, you always put her on the dock as a first person. Yeah. Huh?
Thanks. I think I'm happy. My only sense for the magazine would be know your numbers and narrative. I think I say it all and all again and again. Any entrepreneur, needs to know storytelling, and there is no storytelling without numbers in entrepreneurship. So I think for your magazine, I think my quote unquote will be, as an entrepreneur, be thorough on your narrative and numbers. And if you want to deep dive more, then everybody should go and check out Ashwath Damodran and how he explains on YouTube how to marry numbers and narrative. I think it's a great book as well, and a great lecture, 1 hour on YouTube. Know your numbers and narrative.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
So
Yes, Mr. Mohit.
So for me, the quote would be, startup is not a fame, it's a responsibility, right? So ideally, when you start something, go deep, understand what are you building, because I think in the conversation I found that sometime, because when I was becoming I was founding a company, my wife was like worried because she was 7 months pregnant, right? But for me, the thought was, if you don't take a risk, nothing happens, right? So the biggest risk in life is not taking any risk. So eventually, because you put everything on stake, even if you're a student, if you're starting at 24, 25, you're giving your time, and time is money. Really, the time is money. Think about it. So please, when you start something, don't think about fame. Think that it's a responsibility. When you think on those lines, you really solve meaningful. So please do it for the community. And I think we all have a open platform. We really can build great companies, and that's what it is from my side. Thank you.
Mr. Ashish.
So something which really resonates with me is, and something which I have always been told throughout my journey, is always think 10x, that whatever you are doing currently, what's the next leg of growth coming from? And if you don't have that clarity in your mind, no matter how successful your startup is, at some point it will start to stagnate, and at some point someone else will come you beat down in the game and it will die. The other thing, which is something which really sticks with me, is speed over perfection, right? So a lot of people have that OCD thing कि नहीं यार एकदम 10th decimal तक मेरे को सही करना है. That just doesn't work in the startup space. Again, you have to have a good proof of concept. You have to ensure that your MVP model is fine, but you just can't take your own sweet time. So for me, it is think 10x, ensuring speed over perfection.
Thank you, sir. Shada, ma'am.
I would say my quote would be, your benchmark are yours and yours alone. And this is something I think is, I have repeated this many, many times to young entrepreneurs or to people who are getting into this field, because each of us knows what we are capable of. Each of us have our own personal likes and passions. And if you're an entrepreneur without a passion, or if you're an entrepreneur who's actually piggybacking on somebody else's idea because you're seeing them being successful, or you're seeing it as a trend, and you're saying, okay, let me also latch onto the trend, let me tell you, it will not work. So don't get swayed by numbers. If you're somebody who does not like scale, don't do it. There is no compulsion to do it. If you're somebody who does not, who wants to build those kind of numbers, then go all out and do it. So you have to decide what will work for you. I think Mohit had mentioned it somewhere earlier. You've got to be careful that when you go out and ask for money, because we often only look at the upside of asking for money, not realizing it always comes with certain set of conditions. So do your homework and do only things that you're really comfortable with. So your own benchmarks need to be set, not what others are setting for you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the wonderful discussion. It was an honor to hear so many diverse perspectives.
Mohit,
From
sir,
our
has
esteemed-
something to say. Sir, you can go ahead.
Sorry,
Yeah,
sir.
I just want to add one point, because we have also talked about financials, getting funding and all. I think as an entrepreneur, you should be very choosy, like which investor you want to bring on your board. Very selfish and very clear. Like it's not about money. You should think about that. Yes, as a founder, whether this investor would be able to add some value in my organization or not. If not, please don't go for it. So, Shraddha also mentioned, like do your homework. Create a list like, okay, these are the 4 investors I want to target and why. One, definitely they bring money, but on the apart from money, are they adding any other value? If they are not, please start saying no. So that's very important as a founder. When you say no, people respect it, that yes, he's building something meaningful and he's saying no on my face. So please take care of that as well, I think.
Purva ma'am, would you like to add something?
I think I totally agree with him, and I've seen the culture be very different outside. Likewise, as startup founders, you're pitching to investors. I have seen at least in the West where investors also pitch to a startup, where I think it's an equal perspective. As a startup founder, you're bringing them return on their investment. So you are putting your time while they put their money. So I think it's a equal game, and unfortunately, I don't know where the Indian investor ecosystem whether appreciates it or not, but I think there should be places where you as a entrepreneur should be able to ask the right questions. Ask, like Mohit said, why are you putting money? Is there an opportunity cost for you when you're putting money in me? Right? If there's an opportunity cost, then what is that reason why you're letting go of that opportunity? Because if there is no opportunity cost for them, then you need to think again. Ask good questions, ask what they bring on the table. I think all of it should be there, and I think this is my only feedback to anybody who's doing a Shark Tank ripoff in their college, in their premise, in their vicinity, in the government, wherever it is, that keep it in an equal situation where startup founders are not begging for investment, and likewise investors supposed to pitch back on why they need to park their money. So I really like it how the Shark Tank outside would let judges fight it out and say, I would add more value, etc., etc. I think that should also be a general perspective when you're doing such competitions.
Thank you for the wonderful discussion. It was an honor to hear so many diverse perspectives from our esteemed panelists. We will now proceed to the Q&A session. We would request the panel to answer some of the questions that have been submitted by our audience on the YouTube live stream. So the question is, due to easy accessibility of the internet worldwide, consumer informative is now readily available to everyone. In your perspective, how does this affect to the competitiveness in the industry? Ma'am, would you like to begin? Shada ma'am?
It's actually both good and bad, right? It's great because you can assess your competition so much easier than what it was in a world there was no Google. It's tough also because it means that others can catch up quickly. It's so easy now to see what others are doing. And there are so many ways to get information, even when you're not aware that people are getting information on you. So I would say it's fantastic, but also remember that means you've got to be on your toes all the time.
Mohit sir, would you like to continue?
Yeah. So I think I would take it as an advantage. Yes. At least the information is readily available. So I would still stress on that. You should be smart. You should know where are the gaps. Create a right competitive benchmarking, like what is available, what is not available, and then find out the gaps within it. Right. If you're starting and you have the right information available on internet, ideally it adds value to the idea. And now you should be smart as an entrepreneur to find out the gap and think of that how can you create an entry barrier, right? That's what it makes sense. And this is where then comes in, like, startup is not a fame, it's a responsibility. So you can think around it.
Ashish sir, would you like to give us some views?
In my perspective, like I think the most, especially like let's say if I talk about a D2C product, right? Where has customer the information transparency played out a lot is, I wouldn't have normally easy like ever used a single D2C product. However, now there are reviews, good reviews, bad reviews, right? So this type of customer transparency has actually helped businesses grow. So they know that like the good part is that like okay if the startup is selling a good product, if they're providing good services, the entire growth of urban company, the entire growth of the new D2C brands that have come up is largely to the fact that there has been huge information transparency in the industry. However, along with that also comes fact that just because a few customers were not happy or there was a mismatch in the expectations of the service or the product, that significantly leads to huge downturn in businesses because someone just posts a negative review and like probably even going detailed about what the circumstances were or what exactly the issue, the company starts to suffer a lot. So I think it's both good and bad, depends upon which side of the game you are in. But in my perspective, it has significantly helped the customer transparency, largely in terms of the trust which customers can easily rely or put on a product or a service.
Thank you, sir. Purva ma'am, would you like to add on something?
I'll have to add on. In fact, because this is a student, community, I would definitely bring some places where you guys can read and research and figure out strategies that corporates play. I think that's more important for us to take back. So, talking about the internet and how that internet, of course, in the macro perspective, I stand for the fact that you compete and you succeed, right? So you compete, and the ones who are succeeding are the winners who take home the larger market share, the larger customer share. They take back the bigger profits because you're competing actively. So on a macro strategy perspective, yes, having a transparent ecosystem, letting that competition brew is absolutely great. But if you have a look at the same line, when I say compete and succeed, you will also see interventions that the government does. For example, put up a competition commission where, if competition is is on the wrong side, then they can intervene. Where, if there are bigger mergers and acquisitions, which would then be a threat. Amazon was a great study if you guys want to look at that. How competition commission came in between, put Amazon in arbitration, and how that debate panned out in terms of, small retailers versus an Amazon, and how, that competition happens. Another case study that you guys can go back and read is definitely about Priyanka Gill, who is leading the Good Glam Group. So over a year, they have done more than 12 acquisitions in the industry. And just a lady, I met her 2 weeks ago, and so interesting how she was utilizing, because she was putting up in a different country some extra hours before India wakes up, putting herself in a learning mode, and then implementing that strategy from the business classroom to actual stuff happening in India. And the model she came out with was content marrying commerce. So they bought a lot of content companies like a PopXO, like a Miss Malini, and so many others that we have seen creating content, and then married them to commerce companies who are selling cosmetic products, right? And then how content and commerce became a great acquisition strategy, and that has panned out for them to be rolling over. I think now they want to be acquiring Tweak India, which is Twinkle Khanna's channel. A great case study again for students to read in entrepreneurship. Reading about behavioral advertising, I think, would be very interesting. How the internet per se today is and how advertising strategies have changed based on reading consumer sentiment and behavior. So I think from the question perspective, I would give out many things for you to read and deep dive, because that would help you make your own opinion on how internet is helpful or not.
Thank you, ma'am. So the last question from the YouTube live stream is, how is the internet helping businesses to grow in the rural parts of our country? Sharda ma'am, would you like to begin?
I think, I've seen personally the biggest impact on health, right? The fact that you're able to afford offer healthcare, not just diagnostics, of course, and that's the number one thing, but also you're able to do remote surgeries. Imagine, I think to me, the between healthcare and education, technology, the internet has helped us to move ahead so much. It's helped us reduce infant mortality because the ability to actually see, the problem is that we don't have educated healthcare workers across the country, and we've been able to use technology and the internet to give them remote education, which in turn has helped them provide that maternal and child healthcare to reduce infant mortality. So I believe that in our country, and we should use, if you're told, if you ask me, the single place where technology should be used, I think it's rural.
Ashish sir, would you like to continue?
I personally completely agree with Shada ma'am. Largely, education and healthcare are the two major beneficiaries. No one could have thought that probably a compounder used to be there for a remote village, and like there has been instances where the lack of information has led to multiple deaths or illiteracy. So I think the internet, the first big part they are doing is in the healthcare and the healthcare and education space with the tech and the health tech coming in. However, one recent development which has happened over the past couple of years is like recently majority of the e-commerce platforms went on their sales, right? So there's one of the startups called Misho. They on a over a span of 5 days they did around 5 crore orders, and approximately 40% of their orders came from tier 4 cities, right? So internet has actually just not helped in education and health, but the lifestyle of pattern, the access to things, the access to a lifestyle, it has helped them bring that. So nowadays there are hardly any pin codes in which you won't find a delivery or a e-cart not delivering goods, right? So earlier where it was like some things which used to be dreams ki yaar, when I will go to a city I will buy this, right? Now that has become available. So as and when things become available, be it in terms of content, be it in terms of access, be it in terms of things, the confidence, the lifestyle changes, and that significantly improves the confidence and the day-to-day working of people. So I think that's the biggest area in my perception, or where the internet has helped the rural areas.
Thank you, sir. That was very insightful. Mohit sir, would you like to share some views?
Yeah, I second those points. I think with Shraddha and Ashish, right? Yes, definitely. One is healthcare and edtech. But apart from that, for companies, right, internet has also played a vital role in getting the right talent, right? So now it's not only that talent has to be on that particular city. So now you can get a right talent even from tier 2, tier 3 towns. So definitely it's helping. I think we all have to look at the bright ways, so which internet is bringing.
Purva ma'am, would you like to share some views?
Absolutely. I think I'll take you back on the pandemic story, right? And imagine how the TMT sector was playing an audio on your phone which would tell you that COVID is happening. And that allowed even the rural people, even a grandmother who does not know technology, know that there's something like COVID and she's supposed to stay home. And I think this was all about how technology or the internet was playing a role, because you would see and be aware of information, and then as a country, as a society, be in control of the situation and the calamity that was on the world. There is no doubt education, healthcare, so all of these according to me are areas which, for example, the UN wants you to develop on, right? And these are world goals that nations together want to solve, and there is nothing like it in a country like India, where we have so many different classes and development issues, and a whole polarity in terms of where cities are versus where backward areas are. It definitely helps us to address very important things where resources today need to be equitably distributed. There is a whole thing about a lot of population coming and overburdening cities for employment. Rightly Mohit pointed out, there is a way now where you can let the talent be where they are, and not just as a startup or as a company to tap the right talent, but also be in a situation where you're not inviting overuse of natural resources in one area or in one place, and that allows largely
the country to develop in different tiers as well. So if you have more people living in that city, then there would obviously be more services, more utilities being developed there. So I think, there is no reason to doubt that internet would open ways in which, if strategically used, and advertised and thought over, we could address a lot of global problems, a lot of impact problems, that there are, by simple means and ways. Let's say ask startups to allow work from home, and encourage them to have, employees from a tier 2, tier 3, so that they can stay there and that city can develop. You don't have issues of one city or a Mumbai, Delhi, or a Bangalore overcrowding. Real estate also will be relaxed then. You can have real estate prices grow in that area, so many other things. So I think that's what my 2 cents would be on internet and the way ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. With that, we bring an end to the Q&A round. Now, without wasting any time, I would like to announce the winner of our pre-event competition, Answer the Blinders, a Peaky Blinders quiz. Huge congratulations to Yavesh Khatri for bagging the first position. Bringing this event to an end, I would like to thank our media partners, Delhi University Official and Ensemble Official. Finally, we would like to thank our esteemed panelists for taking out time from their busy schedule to give us their valuable insights today. We would now like to thank our deepest gratitude to Principal Sir, our pillar of support, who encouraged us every step of the way. Lastly, I would like to thank our teachers as well as our audience for making this event a great success. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone.
It was a true honor to have you all with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys, for joining.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sohan,
Thank you
ma'am.
so much.
Bye.
Have a good day. Thank you.
All the speakers have left.
I think we're still streaming, so let's see what to do.